hello to Rainey and everyone who is here for some more Betsy Tacy fun. You should also be seeing some clips from the lovely Christy Lewis from Dostoevsky in Space. So I cannot wait for you to see our thoughts, starting with Betsy and Tacy Go Downtown. This is the last of the childhood books, the early years, and high school books. I really, really enjoy the high school books. But it's been such a delightful way to kind of ease into 2021 with the very, very gentle childhood books. Although I'll say the older ones are gentle as well. But these definitely have a different kind of charm. So it's been really wonderful revisiting them. And I kind of usually have, I think, an unfair lower expectation for what I will think of these because even though there is they're very simple stories, that doesn't mean they're less meaningful, and they still have an emotional depth to them, and I think that's just all down to Maud Hart Lovelace's skill as a writer. So I will just show you some parts of it. There were several that I really enjoyed. Firstly, I love that it opens up with drama. Tacy's father finds a copy of Lady Audley's Secret. Rena, who is Betsy's family's helper, their maid. I guess maid is the term you would use, but she had Lady Audley's Secret and she loaned that, and then Tacy says, "Well, Papa found it." And Betsy says, "What happened?" Tacy's eyes overflowed. "I had hidden it under the bed, and this noon, while we were eating dinner, Mama told Papa she thought there was a mouse hole in our room, and Papa went looking for it, and he found the book. He was furious, but he never dreamed it was mine. He marched down to the table and asked Mary whether she'd been reading it, and she said no. And he asked Celia, and she said no. And he asked Katie, and she said no. And then he came to me, and I had to say yes. Papa said he was amazed and astounded. He said he thought he brought us up to appreciate good literature. He said there was a set of Dickens in the house and Shakespeare and Father Finn. And how did a child of his happen to be reading trash? Then he went out to the kitchen range and lifted the lid and threw it in." So I just love that I have read Lady Audley's Secret now and adore it so much, but it's a sensation novel. So, interestingly though, I think there's just as many dramatic things that happen in Dickens books. So that's interesting that he's very much considered in a different category. And one of my favorite parts in this story is when Betsy's mother realizes that writing is a passion for her. And so she gives her this old trunk to be her writing chest. And then Betsy has been writing her own sensation novels. And you can see the titles flash past: Lady Gwendolyn's Sin, The Tall Dark Stranger, Hardly More Than a Child. And she just feels this compulsion, like she wants her mother to know what she's reading. And her parents, that's not the kind of literature they would approve of. And what I love is that instead of giving her this big scolding for writing things that they think doesn't count as good literature, they have a talk. And then they tell her, they all sit down together as a family and they have a plan where she's going to get to go to the library every 2 weeks. And she's going to get to go out for a sandwich and milk and ice cream every other week. She'll get to spend the morning at the library. And I just think it's so sweet. And I just love their family. And that the fact that her parents would take the time to talk with each other, like, how can we change this situation around to be something good, where she can pursue her passions. And this, is one of my absolute favorite pages in here. "Are you looking for the children's room?" she asked. Betsy beamed in response. "Well, not exactly. That is, I'd just like to see it, but I may not want to read just in the children's room." "You don't think so?" asked the young lady, sounding surprised. "No, you see," explained Betsy. "I want to read the classics." "You do?" "Yes, all of them. I hope I'm going to like them." Oh, I love Betsy Ray so much. And what a fun nod to her husband, Maud Hart Lovelace's husband. His name was Delos, even though the Greek island you would say Delos. His name was Delos Lovelace. And so I love that she put this in here that there is a painting of a rocky island with a temple on it called the Isle of Delos. Think that's a little kind of like Easter egg, as they say now, that she has put in there. And I think it's really sweet that she did that. And she knew he would see that. And one of my favorite characters, um, and I can't remember how much we see her from the older books, but Mrs. Poppy. And, here is Betsy heading home, and she slips after boys are throwing snowballs at her. And Mrs. Poppy is just overjoyed to get to take Betsy, who's cold and wet and just really shaken up after that happened to her. And she gets to take her back to her really cozy room. At the Melbourne Hotel. And I love the end of the chapter says, the visit to the Carnegie Library raced into Betsy's past before a future which held hot chocolate at the Melbourne Hotel. And why I just think it's particularly sweet that Betsy and Mrs. Poppy get to spend time together is that you find out that Mrs. Poppy had a little girl that died. And she has moved to this town with her husband. And he owns the theater, so they are very wealthy, but she is lonely as lonely can be. And that's, money keeps a roof over your head and it puts food on the table, which are both essential, but it cannot ensure your happiness. So here is this woman, with any possible thing you could want to own, but she's really lonely for companionship. So I've really, really enjoyed reading this. What I also noticed in my read of this is just how much of a love there is for story. And Betsy loves stories, all kinds. And she writes a poem in this one, and she goes to plays, and she's reading books and telling stories to her friends. And it's just so, so lovely. So I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts, Rainey and Christy, and I will very much look forward to shortly, maybe in the next couple days, starting Heaven to Betsy.
Hi, Kate and Christy this time. I'm so excited that Christy is joining us for this book. This book, Betsy and Tacy Go Downtown, I had actually forgotten a lot of what goes on in this book. And when I started flipping through it, I just remember being so fascinated because I felt like in this one, we really get to see what was going on in this time period and um, how much culture was in their world at the time, and it was just delightful to get to see the horseless carriage and how exciting it was for people at the time, and also just like how much work it was to even get the thing started. And the theater, and just how exciting it was for people to get to see a show. Like I'm involved in theater, and it still is like an evening out for people, but I feel like it just isn't the same as it was back then. Like it was a big dress up event to get to go to the theater back then, um and it's just not so much like that anymore. I just loved getting to meet the characters of the Poppies, and yeah, just this one just brought the era to life for me. This is one of my favorite scenes in and Tacy Go Downtown. It's when Mr. Ray and Mrs. Ray decide that it would be a good idea to let Betsy have a library card for her first time. So cute. Okay, let's see what he has to say. As I understand it, he said, you can keep a book 2 weeks. So after the library opens, why don't you start going down every other Saturday, say, and get some books? And don't hurry home. Stay a while. Browse around among the books. Every time you go, you can take 15 cents. He gave her 2 coins. At noon, go over to Bauer's Bakery for a sandwich and milk and ice cream. Would you like that? Oh, Papa, said Betsy. She could hardly speak. She thought of the library, so shiny and white and new, and rows of unread books. The bliss of unhurried sojourns there, and of going out to a restaurant alone to eat. One of my favorite characters in all of the Betsy books is Mrs. Poppy. She is just a lovely individual. And I love how she and her husband are described and how much they love children, and even learning some of her backstory later is just really sweet and kind of heartbreaking in ways, but she is just such a happy, loving person. And this scene where Tib gets to ride in the horseless carriage for the first time with Mrs. Poppy is just so fun. And also one of my least favorite characters in the Betsy Tacy series, Winona, gets her a little bit of comeuppance in this scene, which I like. Probably one of the reasons that this book is one of my favorites in the series is because a lot of it centers around the theater, and I love the theater, and I miss it terribly. And they go to see Uncle Tom's Cabin, which apparently at the time was a very sought-after show, and I think that would have been really interesting to see at the time. And I just think that's great that they got to see it. And then later when the girls were in a show, and then the whole storyline with Uncle Keith, Mrs. Ray's brother, who was an actor, I just love that. You just don't see that very often in books of this time. And yeah, I just think it's great. And it kind of shows where one of the girls kind of what her passion in life is going to be in the series, and I love that.
Hey guys, this is Christy from Dostoevsky in Space, and I'm just following my update about book 4 of the Betsy Tacy series. Here it is. I read this, it was adorable, it was my favorite one yet. I really enjoyed the last one of these as well. So, I mean, I'm not dissing on the other ones, but the third one in particular I liked. This one I loved. My husband just came in to kiss me, and he was just eating some Muddy Buddies. And now I taste Muddy Buddies. Okay, and it's snowing. I'm gonna put some snow footage right here. This is nuts. I'm not sure I've ever seen it stick so much. It's like a blizzard out here. Okay, Michael's gonna laugh if he sees this. It is not blizzarding, but this is California blizzarding right here. This is the coziest day ever to be filming a Betsy Tacy vlog, which is so appropriate because not only is there snowy winter scenes, it's also very cozy. This is like the coziest book I read last month. Okay, you've seen the snow, now we can move on. So, the plot begins when Betsy is sitting up in her favorite tree where she likes to write, and it's getting kind of cold, and her friend Tacy comes along and is like, oh my gosh, my dad just burned this book that the maid gave me, and I'm so upset because the maid's not gonna let us borrow her books anymore after this. What's really cute about this is that it's Lady Audley's secret, I think it is. Anyway, it's like a Victorian sensational novel that like a lot of my friends have read here on BookTube and like really enjoy. So it's just funny that the Victorian sensational novels at that time were like scandalous. I guess probably like reading romance today. The girls were like sneaking peeks at it and stuff like that. So pretty cute. Boy, my hair is like crazy. I put it in braids for this because Betsy always wears braids, but it looks like a puffball. So, and Betsy has been writing her own stories that are kind of similar to Lady Audley's Lover. And so when she shows her mom her writing, her mom is setting up a writing desk for her, which is cool. I'll talk about that in a minute. So her mom sees her writing, and she's like, you've been reading Rena the maid's dime novels. Ugh, why aren't you reading the classics in our bookshelf? And Betsy's like, I already read them all. And Mom's like, oh, yeah, I didn't think of that. Betsy wins that round. So anyways, Mom comes up with this awesome plan to send Betsy to the library every other week and she will send her with some pocket money so she can get some lunch from the bakery. And that just sounds so fun. That's why I really love this book, is because of the library love, to be honest with you. So we'll get to that in a minute. There's a mystery plot set up right from the beginning, which I love. It's Betsy's Uncle Keith. He is the one who the trunk belongs to, that is now Betsy's special writing place. Keith really loved to write, so it's very, like, significant to her and her family. And then Keith ran away because his dad was kind of like a hard guy who didn't understand Keith's flowery love of all things story and acting and stuff like that. So nobody has seen him since then, and they just have his trunk, and Betsy is using his trunk. So you're kind of like, yeah, okay, we're gonna see Keith by the end of this book, which I'm totally cool with and excited about. Some of the things that I love, I'm actually gonna talk a lot about recurring motifs, because in an earlier vlog, Rainey used that word. Thank you, Rainey. It's so nice to have friends that are smarter than you, because I didn't know what that word meant, but she said motif. I looked it up, and it's like a recurring idea or theme or something that just happens again and again. I guess like in an author's oeuvre? Oh, I don't know if I'm saying that right. I don't even know how to tell you the definition, but motif is a thing that recurs. How about that? One of the motifs is that Tib is a little bit different from her friends. And I love Tib. I'm going to share a quote with you, and it's Betsy and Tacy are having an adventure. This is before Betsy gets to go to the library, I believe. So they're just talking. This is another motif of the book. Julia, Betsy's sister, is a recurring antagonist of sorts for the book because Betsy just doesn't understand or like her older sister very much. So Julia's hanging out with a boy, and the girls are trying to figure out, okay, how can we get some money to buy another copy of Lady Audley's Secret for the maid so that she'll keep lending us her books? So they see Julia walking along with a boy, and the boy's carrying her books, and Betsy's like, oh, it's a good thing that she has Jerry to carry all those heavy books for her. And Tacy said, they'd break her back practically if she had to carry them herself. They're just like teasing Julia from a distance. And Tacy says, this going around with boys makes me sick. And Tib says,
I like Herbert Humphreys.
which is another boy in like their year. It was just like Tib to like a boy and say so. That is just like Tib. Every time the other girls are like gossiping about somebody else or having some kind of bad attitude or just being like mouthy or even just having an opinion that's like kind of strong, Tib is like, oh well,
This.
and it totally goes against what the other two say. I love it. I love Tib. Okay, what else do we have? Let's talk about more motifs. Whimsy. Whimsy is another thing that you will always find in these books, and I love it because whimsy is why I read fantasy. It's why I read children's fiction. I read science fiction for kind of like the thoughts, like thoughtful commentary on society, and I read classics for thoughtful commentary on spiritual matters and people and social interactions. And I read nonfiction for actual information, like facts about the world. So I have like pretty strong reasons for every kind of book that I read in every genre, and I read children's fiction for whimsy, and these books are so whimsical. That's what I love about them. Part of the whimsy about this story is that there's a lot about the theater and theater life in this series. Let me show you an illustration that we'll talk about this a bit. Oh, I didn't show you the illustration of the girls trying to get money from Julia's boyfriend. They're like taking advantage of the fact that Julia and the boy want to be alone, and so they just like go sit near them. Even though these two want to be alone, the girls all just sit in a row hoping for some... Oh, hang on. Phone call. I'm back. It's like a million hours later. I realized I did my hairstyle wrong, and it's still not perfect. But here we go. Julia and her boyfriend are trying to like be alone, and the girls are just sitting on the step, and they're hoping to get some money from the boyfriend, because if they can get some money from him, they can go buy a book to give back to their friend Rena the maid. So fun stuff. Okay, on to the theater life. So the theater thing, they have a friend who has some tickets. She has 3 tickets to Uncle Tom's Cabin, and they are hoping that she will take them. But they're trying to convince her by being super nice to her and giving her gifts and all kinds of stuff. They're like trying to bribe her. They try to ignore her into it. In this particular case, they're trying to hypnotize her. And look at their eyes. Isn't that so great? They're trying to hypnotize her into bringing them along, giving them the tickets. I think it's awesome. Oh, another motif, and this is part of the cozy factor, is that there's always delicious food, and the girls are always getting it, even when it's like they kind of are sneaky getting it, you know? So in this book, they get some yummy food. I love that. It's definitely part of a cozy story to me. Another cozy thing is, oh, Betsy goes to the library, and that is like did I talk about this? That's my favorite part of this book. She spends a bunch of time in the library, and I had days like this when I was a kid. Me and my friend Teresa would walk I lived like probably 4 miles from the library, but literally to get our exercise, we would go walk and pick up one of those cups at the gas station where you can mix hot chocolate and coffee, and then we'd go hang out at the library for hours and just read. Or like ride our bikes and just read. And those are like seriously fond memories, guys. So in this one, Betsy walks to the library, spends a few hours reading, gets totally lost in it. When she gets hungry, she goes to the bakery and gets some yummy food and dessert. And then she walks back to the library and spends longer hours in there. And it's so cozy and wonderful. I love it. Okay, more motifs. Unity, despite racial and class differences, is something that we've seen before. In the third book, they met the gypsies, and they met a princess among the gypsies, and that was really cute. In this book, they befriend a woman of a higher class whose daughter has died, and she's very lonely, and she doesn't have a lot of friends, and it's sad. The mom is like, oh no, daughter, Betsy, she wouldn't want to talk to me. I don't have that kind of wealth. Why would she even care? And Betsy's like, no, really, you should go talk to her mom. Also, I love that part of the series motif. I feel like, thank you, Rainey, for that word. That's a fun one. It's useful. Betsy and her sister, Julia, are kind of at odds throughout the book. But in this book, she mentions a few good things about Julia. So she's like starting to recognize some nice things about Julia. Julia gets really excited for other people when they have like life victories. She'll celebrate with them. And Betsy appreciates that. And I appreciate that about Betsy and Julia's relationship. I think that's pretty much all that I had to say. Yeah, I can't wait to hear what Rainey and Kate have to say, you guys. I need to know. I need to see this vlog and see what you guys think. Okay, I'll talk to you soon.
Hi, Rainey. So I kind of failed at vlogging Heaven to Betsy. We have just dragged out this read-along, which is nice because it's been leisurely, but then I've been less diligent about vlogging. So I thought I would look at the sticky notes that I took. And firstly, I want to say that I think now looking back at the high school books and why I like them so much more than the younger books is obviously I was thinking more focusing on Betsy, oh, that's the reason you get to see her in high school. But it's more, you see Betsy plenty, in the younger books. It's all of the side characters that make this so fun, doesn't it? It just feels like one giant party, even though obviously there are parties that she attends. But I just mean with all of the socializing that is happening, and even I feel you get to see Betsy's family more in these high school books. And the Ray family to me are just the heart and soul of this series. Along with Betsy and Tacy, their friendship. But I think that's what I appreciate so much about the high school ones. And then I know in Betsy and the Great World, you're not going to have that as much. And even in Betsy's Wedding, which I consider my favorite, you have some friends, but it's not the same carefree dynamic. This feels very carefree. And I had forgotten, like, Betsy just feels so young and immature. But let us look, I'm going to show a picture, and I don't know if you're going to talk about this. Ooh, these are very stuck to my pages. But, then another highlight, Anna is a great character. And how she calls anyone that she thinks is good looking, she calls them puny. It's excellent. I love that. Also, I like seeing that, at the beginning of the story, when Betsy finds out that her family has moved houses, she is really conflicted, and she knows her whole family is excited. I find it very interesting that for someone who is as extroverted and social as Betsy, she's very private about her innermost feelings and basically shares them with Tacy. Tacy gets to know all of the ins and outs of the people that she is crushing on. She doesn't share that with her other family, or with her family, and I find that fascinating. Then on the first day of school, it talks about how Anna makes muffins every first day of school. I forgot this, and now I'm like, I am doing that for Peter and Arthur. When it's their first official day of school, like in September, I am making muffins. And I was like, that is such a sustainable tradition, and it will feel very nostalgic each year. So yes, we are doing that. I'm making muffins like Anna. And I also really enjoy how big the new house feels, and they have hot water running. And then also, can we please, just for fun, can it come back for teenagers to sing around a piano together? It's just everyone's too cool for that now, and I love that aspect of it. I love how elusive Joe Willard is. It makes him extra intriguing, and I like that she sees him reading a book the first time that she ever sees him. I did kind of forget just how boy crazy Betsy was, and it does get on my nerves sometimes, but I still am very loyal to her, and so I know she's going to grow and mature, and we all have, I don't know, like our things that we struggle with. And okay, the introduction of the Sunday night lunches with Bob Ray's onion sandwiches, which I always would have said, I cannot just imagine liking an onion sandwich. And then for my Being Betsy Ray for a Day video I did in honor of her birthday, I really liked the onion sandwich that I had. I did not think I would. Jennifer K. Davis says you should also try butter on it in addition to the vinegar. I really want to try that. I do have some sad news though. So I was wondering where her house is, her high school house. You can visit the house that she was very young in, that was right across the street from Bick, her friend who inspired the character of Tacy. And you can visit that house. So I asked Jennifer, who I just talked about, where is the high school house? It is a parking lot now. Betsy Ray's high school house is a parking lot. Jen said it's the most hated parking lot in America. That made me very, very sad to learn that. I love just Cab, Tony, and Herbert. Their dynamic together is incredibly endearing. And oh, the Halloween party. I love that in this. There is, I think it's like teenagers playing games like that together is starting to be kind of a lost art. And I feel like teenagers now they just watch movies together, or they're bored. There's not much of a concept of what to do for entertainment. And a lot of people don't like teenagers trick-or-treating on Halloween. So I love the idea of just having a Halloween party together. I think it's very, very fun. This series is just so consoling and endearing, and I love it for that. Trying to think of anything else. Well, I think I will leave it at that. So this was a less vloggy vlog, and I also, confession, I just went ahead and read Betsy in Spite of Herself, because I left this lingering for like 2 months, and then it was bugging me that it was lingering, and so I dived back into Heaven to Betsy, and then once I was in it, I was like, oh gosh, now I want to read Betsy in Spite of Herself immediately. And then it happened where I just did read it immediately. So I'll have to look back on my thoughts, and maybe I'll watch your clip, Rainey, first, and then respond to your clip with my thoughts. So yeah, I think that's basically what I thought about Heaven to Betsy. Oh, and the last, you may have read this, but the last chapter, oh, and the essay contest. Betsy's very frustrating that she's just so distracted by everything and all the socializing, and the essay contest is lingering closer and closer, and she's not doing her research or preparing like she's supposed to be. And it's very stressful to watch it happen, kind of like a train wreck. Yes. But I love the last sentence, or the last couple sentences of Heaven to Betsy, where it says, on the steps of the high street house, she had met her disappointment after the essay contest. She thought suddenly about Joe Willard. He had never been inside her house yet. She and Tacy sat looking down Hill Street while the clouds in the sky behind Tacy's house turned pink. Their hands met, and as always, unfailingly, joined in a loyal clasp. The world has such a rosy glow when you finish a Betsy Tacy book, and I love it for that. Very excited to continue on with this reread.
Well, Kate, after a long hiatus from our little book adventure, we are finally done with Heaven to Betsy. And I loved it. as per usual. I don't know why it took me so long to finish it, though. I think just so many other things were happening. But yeah, this one was just so, I don't know, you just got a better sense of them being older, and I was really shocked the couple of times that they mentioned in here that Betsy's only 14 and a freshman in high school, because she just seemed so much older at times, and then, pretty young at other times. But just all the boys that she had in this one, and all the parties she was going to, just made her seem so much older. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one on a second reading. This is probably my favorite picture of all of them in this particular book. I just think it really epitomizes what this whole book is kind of about. You have these two guys paying attention to Betsy and surrounded by books, because this follows her, start into high school. And this is a section where she and Joe Willard are competing in the essay contest. And but Tony, I almost forgot his name. Tony is kind of playing games with Betsy. And yeah, and she just looks very perplexed, because I feel like that's how Betsy was this entire book, was just perplexed by feelings and boys and writing and everything. And then even the title of Church and Library, I feel like this book just had a lot of kind of deep things in it, from deciding what denomination you want to be and what church you want to go to, and will you be disappointing your family if you choose a church or whatever that is different from what they've always been. And then the library plays a big role in the second half of this book, and it just shows dedication or lack thereof, and teaches Betsy some lessons about herself and about the role boys should play in your life whenever they are such a fleeting part of life sometimes. But yes, this is my favorite picture. I will say that this book gave me some anxiety because, and it gave me even more anxiety the first time I read it, but I still had anxiety with the essay contest this time, and just with the whole, with her thoughts on Tony, and how she was just so obsessed with Tony and going to parties and everything. And I just kept thinking, oh, this is going to end badly for you, if you don't straighten up, Betsy. So I will say that even though I know the outcome, it still gave me anxiety. But like everything, it all turns out in the end for Betsy, and she learns some lessons, and just things never go horribly wrong for Betsy for too long. So yeah, it was still a wonderful read. And originally I thought that the high school years were not my favorite, because I just found the early years of Betsy, Tacy, and Tib so charming. And then after Tib leaves for a while and we don't see her, and the girls start going to high school and get in with boys and kind of start acting very teenager like, it kind of, for a little bit anyway, just gave me a little bit more of like a not cozy vibe. But on second reading of it, I find it still very charming. The first time I think because I didn't know where it was going, of course, And this time I am picking up on little things that, like, she and Joe say to each other, or descriptions of things that go on in Betsy's life that I can see are going to come to fruition later, that it makes it a lot nicer for me, even though that she's getting that, kind of clicky high school thing going on, but yeah. So this was a very nice read, even though there were some tense times, and we know that there's going to be some more tense times later, but I'm excited to get to Betsy in spite of herself, and hopefully we won't have a 3-4 month break in between the next few. So yay, I'm excited to be continuing on with our little read along, and I'll talk to you later, Kate. Bye.